our fifth and final Artist of the Month and for this year. And Wenda Curtis is our featured artist, and she will tell us all about how she makes her beautiful jewelry. Wenda, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for braving this odd weather we're having, and I'm grateful for the beautiful day. So, this is what I do. This is what I think I have always done. And when I wrote my little artist bio, it was important to me. It took me years. This is the first time that I've put my artist bio anywhere. It was, I've been at the Guild for 7 years now, I think. And yeah, my name and picture were never in the book and never on the website because I had such a hard time talking about that and thinking about that. I had a great history. I had a great childhood. But for some reason, writing it down was difficult. Family feuds, people dying, you know, all inheritance issues, all of that you learn everyone goes through. And it does color the way. So it was very good timing for me to find the Artist Guild. But in any case, I wrote in that bio that my brothers and I were encouraged to play with knives. And that really struck a nerve in a few people because I don't think of a knife as a weapon. And for the same way that I am so grateful to my parents for handing me a violin when I was very young so that I could learn to play that with excellence. And it must take incredible courage to go here. And I learned later when I was teaching that instrument that it does, and sometimes the kids trip, but that my parents allowed me to take the risks that must have, you know, it was not easy for them. There was actually a whole lot more control than there would have been because, well, I found this knife when I cleaned out my mother's house, and it is my knife from back then. And because of that, it was natural. My parents were both artists of some sort. My father was a cellist and my mother was an art teacher. She was a graphic designer and an illustrator. She was excellent. I found wonderful things when you're cleaning a house. I found some of her artwork that had been published in the New York Times in the 1950s. She did fashion shoes. It was great. But anyway, so here were my parents. They had come to a wedding in the Adirondacks and did not understand how much money it took to get back. So they hung around for a bit. They realized that they loved the area. They really wanted to live on an island in Maine. You could have one then if you would keep away the Red Scare, but you had to have a pilot's license. You had to be able to run a ship, which they did both do. They got the license before they died. Anyway, into this world, a house was found for the new music teacher. My father stayed, eventually came back, and he was the band leader and everything else for Rutland High School. And at that time, he was the only one. And he would drive his little Volkswagen up over Brandon Pass because 73 was a road and Route 4 wasn't yet, and I am that old. But anyway, and my mother, who had grown up in Cincinnati and gone to art school and, you know, lived a very lovely life compared to my art school. But anyway, it was a shock for her to have children and in the wilds. And I have to say this on record now because there really wasn't much done for my parents at their passing, but I am so grateful for the freedom that they gave us and the ability to just spend our time. I have an appreciation for nature that I wouldn't have had without, at that time, it was almost boredom, I will admit, no other people, but to see how structures happen, to see how plants grow, to see what makes sense for nature. It will make sense later in your artwork. So I got really good at carving. Mostly it was sticks. At first it was snakes. You know, you make a mouth. And from that, that's a subtractive process, and I really respect people who work with wood because when you make a mistake, you're done. I mean, you can laminate in and do whatever, but with metalworking, even directly in the metal, You can melt, you can add to it, you can take away, you can carve. If you don't like it, you can add a little more. There are processes that are easier to understand. It's more like ceramics when you work with wax. I don't have an affinity for wax. I like to carve the metal, and then I'll make a mold of the piece that I'm happy with in metal, which is here. And then that allows me something to take back again and work again and do it differently. And it's that freedom factor for me, that there's nothing lost, there's no heartbreak in a mistake. Everything is something that evolves. And looking at my work here, I realize that it really does evolve. So as a young person, it was not a big deal to get a hold of some copper wire or any kind of wire. I did that in tin cans, and the Rutland Library had books on metalsmithing, and they haven't, techniques, especially in the early 60s, hadn't changed since they wrote those books 100 years before. And it was a great thing to be able to go in with my dad and go to the big library and learn from people who had been before. It's been a long time since I didn't give due reward to the people who had come before me. There are so many things that I use, that I work with, that I think I've invented. And I look back and go, wow, that was just, it wasn't a mistake that happened in my hand. Especially, considering it wasn't just my parents who had been artists. I had great uncles and great aunts who were, we have the books, the golden books with the pictures in them, or I found this in the barn. My grandfather made it for my father. He was a carpenter, among other things. So anyway, I have an appreciation. A lot of this is from cleaning a house and seeing what survives and thinking about what I want to have survive. There was a print of yours, Liza, that I had to have. It was a buck jumping over a downed birch tree. I don't remember the title.
I can't think of it either.
Anyway, it was What We Leave Behind. And for me, in the beauty of the moment, there was nature. It was a painting. You painted it from imagination and with skill. Anyway, but so What We Leave Behind is what I think about quite a bit. And I guess I'll just give you a quick tutorial on what I do. All this work lets my mind ramble a lot, and I enjoy that. It's I think about who will get the piece, what the piece will be, where it comes from, if there is any link to anything important, or is it just a bit of glitter? And it may be just a bit of glitter to me, or it may be something important to somebody down the road. It doesn't matter. So I have this responsibility because of how high on the food chain my medium is. The destruction that comes to mine these metals, what comes down to how many people sitting in a little closet somewhere in Brazil are cutting that stone that was found by somebody in the river. I feel I have an obligation to honor this work. And it goes back to, you get good with your tools so that what you produce is worth it. I'm finally at the point in my life where I trust myself with what I do. And that may go away again, but it is so much fun with all the skills I have now to finally, because I'm pretending I'm retired, turning down custom work, to do what I want to do. And I realize I've always been lucky enough to do what I want to do. Anyway, so many things I do start with a circle. It's just, if you start with something that makes physical sense, like a circle, you can't really go wrong. You can mangle it, that might be the point. But for most of my things, it's for wire work. Wrap it around a spool, cut off the circles, and I have spent much of my life on a nice sunny day doing this. I've spent it in here and posted it. It's nice therapy. So I wanted to talk about the snowflakes before I get too far off track. and make it possible for people to see. So playing with these things then and thinking about what do people want. Well, in Vermont, they like the maple leaves. I do too, it's fun. But they like snowflakes, and that's a different take on things. There's so much symmetry and so much restriction in what you can do, but to a point. So I have to explain this a little better. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, here, Dave. Well, no, I just wanna put these up like the snowflake. So I have my little rings that I've made on a spring. You hold these. And when I work on my bench, then this seemed like a good idea. Might not work. Take my. I'll get the technique and then we'll go quicker. Anyway, you know how they go, right? Give me one. So I used to have a problem with the number 6 being just so symmetrical. I liked uneven. I liked odd prime numbers. But when you throw together 7 circles, you get something very precise that defines itself. Bubbles make hexagons in globes. And when bees make tunnels for their, yep, either place. When they make their tunnels for their brood, those circles together make hexagons. And so for that way, I can really live with a natural order of a snowflake. You got it? You don't got it. This is just taking a lot of time. Yeah. Well, you get the idea. There's a couple more. Here.
All right. I shall continue.
You can continue.
All right. I got you.
Anyway, once this part is done, all the work and all the order in the snowflake is together. If I can get those 7 circles welded, then I can go from there. I can weld on, I can put somebody's birthstone, I can put a family's worth of birthstone, I can think about them as earrings or pins or even a political statement or not. You know, it's in the eye of the beholder. So working with that over the years, now's when I'm going to want you to pass things to Dave. I started with little welding together, and I would make hundreds of snowflakes out of little circles. It was tough. And anyway, pass that. Now I'll keep talking. Nope, that's a cast. So what I realized, and it was something I wanted to do when I juried in here, I don't want to get too involved with production, but I want to give myself the freedom where if that's a given, I don't want to do that 100 times. I just want to work from that. So I took my circles and I molded them. And it gave me the start then of a snowflake that I could, by making one a little thicker than what I would want, and I don't know where that one is, but it doesn't matter. Layering it, baking it, basically, in rubber, and then cutting it out with a scalpel, I can inject wax back in. And then I have a solid piece. Wait a minute, and we'll just do this and that. Okay, pass that. I have a solid piece that I can go back and add to. This set here was made by using just those circles and then adding wire on and melting the tips in, which is a little bit of a trick. I like the discipline of making something happen 6 times the same way, but you can imagine there's plenty of times that it doesn't happen. But anyway, so from that, then I molded again and I laid some of those circles down on sheet metal and just melted it down. And I found, here we can put that with it. This one is ready to be rubber molded. You always have to have a way in for the wax and a way out for the silver after that model has been filled with a plaster that can take high heat. Peel that off, you leave the wax in there. This goes in a kiln and you melt this out. And when you spin molten silver or gold back in, you get that duplicate. Anyway, I'll pass that for the snowflakes. Judy, these were from when you asked us to do process. I was so happy I had melted it down. Okay. And on a lot of things then, I can take designs that I've done once and do them differently next time without having to go back to a wad of wax, because I really do prefer carving metal. You can pass that. So I've made a good business and fit well into my community, made a lot of important connections and a lot of rich life by making somebody's wedding band or engagement ring just for them. And I'd like to do more just for the heck of it, but to be able to not have to go back to step one, I feel like I am relying a lot on my history and on all the work that I've learned. I was lucky to be taught this when I was in school. It's a way you can keep your design and let it evolve. It's a way for me to show something to someone and not have to just make it again. It won't happen. Even with the snowflakes where I'm trying to make them all the same, I can't. I did learn though, you don't send out mismatched pairs, even though I really wanted to do that back in my 20s. They get returned. They were wrong. But I think the world might be ready for mismatched snowflakes now. Anyway, so a lot of, yes ma'am. Getting back to the circles and the wire work, some pieces you can see in those rings, the swirl, and that swirl is something that I cut this out last night, so I know this works. It's easy to cut circles out of sheet metal. You can stamp them out. I can stamp out an outer circle and an inner one, or I can just cut it out with shears. But what that allows me to do then is I'm starting with something which makes sense already, and I'm playing with it. And that, to me, this is exactly what I get to do with the metal. And I can do it for a ring or earrings. When I do earrings, they've got to be mirror images. Part of that is you just want to prove that it's on purpose, but it's also, it looks right. So working with this then, sometimes I will go back and, yeah, there's a ring here. This ring was done all out of sheet metal and just, it's a model, it's an idea, but it was done with a circle. How did and just, I see things this big, even though they're this big. I don't make many things this big. I did start by doing big sculptural pieces. I thought I would get back to it. I don't have the need. In what I see this big, I see all this form. I see all those lines. I see how a million little vectors, if you were working with wire, become a plane that moves. And it is, because it's a natural flow of things and these shapes happen in nature, it's beautiful. What makes it not beautiful is if you were to crunch it, and that might be beauty to somebody else. But to me, it's about harmony. Something like this, to be, for me, it needs the accent of some straight line. Sometimes it's just, if it's a gemstone with facets, that's a sparkle that draws you to one spot, but it's also some straight lines against the contrast, pull down the middle, or anyway. But that's where the fun comes in. I usually have in mind what I'm making, but I don't always. Here. Take that. And these. Some things are obvious enough when you're playing. I think in terms of planes in space, but it's more just what would happen if. The simple, how you change it. You've all seen my pinwheels. You know, thanks to that art teacher mom, we were encouraged. So this piece, simple enough. I did that piece, hopefully that can make this work. Because I promised I would show the icicle earrings. So from those, that square, and I've worked this out a million different ways. Sometimes I'll play with Play-Doh or wax, but I love working directly with the metal, but it would just, sometimes it's just too much of a waste. Some things are very clear. You don't need to start with small gaps and go big, because when you spiral something, anyway, there's a whole lot of math involved. I was thinking about your talk. So many times things happen by instinct, and you go down the road, you realize, well, that's a blah, blah, blah curve, or I don't know. There's a reason my sons are engineers. There is a reason to things that I never bothered to learn, but I'm always surprised at the magic of it and how it's just purely instinct on some levels. So this piece, you may have to stand up to see this, because I don't think I want to put this on that. Just turning that piece, I can tip it up in a minute. You get a drama, and the curves, I'll put the actual one out, because paper is not as polite. This piece, yep, get those lassos.
Oh my God, look at this.
It's these guys.
There we go. Take a piece
And
of paper.
you can see where it comes from here. Put this little square guy in with it too. So those I did just a couple of days ago, and I'm excited about it, but they're so pokey that as jewelry, it's going to take some work, but I love what happens with the straight lines and the curves because of the spiral. So, while I was trying to stay calm, I did this one up.
Oh wow.
The funny thing is about that is you start with this. And I figured that out by hammering silver. And when you hammer a piece of wire, you thicken it like doing calligraphy. But what I realized, I don't know how easy this is to see, I'm going to cut it out now. But just playing randomly, you realize that it's mathematical. Even though this is looking so random, it's a set of circles getting further and further apart. I'm sure there's a formula if you wanted to do the math. But they are in a straight line. And when you twist it, you get back. And I thought it was really cool that it is so similar to Circuit Mound, which is sort of, a sacred place for me in Ohio. A mound that looks like a snake, that might be an effigy, it might be that this is what the meteors looked like when they were coming down, warn people, we don't know. But the map of it is there the same way it's in every bit of biology. So I guess if if there are any questions, Dave will bring you, yes he will, that sheet. And I have lost my hearing. I can still talk really loud, but I really can't hear people. Sometimes it comes back. The fact that it was totally gone a month ago and I got it half back again in 1 year so I could do this talk makes me realize there is hope that maybe, but I don't think I ever have to teach violin again. So, but if I do, and I've said this before, it won't be so painful. So does anybody have a question? Raise your hand and he'll give you that. No? Yay.
Or I can attempt to translate one or the other.
Hey Wenda, so can you hear what I'm saying?
I can.
Okay, how big, the silver sheets really,
I
I'm
can
interested.
buy
How
silver
big,
sheets.
how big can they be and how thick? I mean, how big can you get a silver sheet?
You
I mean,
could get somebody to make you a sheet easily. You could get it in 2 foot by 1 foot. I usually, if I'm producing a lot, I like to get a 12-inch square. You can buy metal already rolled out in all sorts of increments. I know I do this design out of a heavier piece of silver than the square one because these edges have to hold up. They have to have a presence. You want to see that line. On other things, it's about the plane and they can be lighter. There's different alloys of the metal, so that the alloy that I've been lucky enough to work with can be heated in a kiln for a certain amount of time at a certain temperature, and it makes it as hard as white gold. For me, that's a wonderful thing. I am so allergic to white gold. I get the flu. It's the nickel in it. Okay. What metal do you carve into for your molds? I like to carve silver these days. Originally, I didn't bring it, but a lot of my very early work was in pewter, which even at that time, it's tin and zinc, no lead in it. Very soft. It's, to me, even softer than some of the waxes I use, but it is metal. To be able to make this kind of mold, whatever I make it from has to take temperatures of 350 degrees for an hour and some pressure. Even the little snowflake mold that I make gives me a slightly warped snowflake because it was that light. But, what was I gonna talk about? I forgot with your question. Did I? Yeah, okay, all right. So yeah, thickness, it depends on the use, but also it's really nice when you have a material and a consideration to try to make when I'm thinking about jewelry. The cast snowflakes, because there has to be enough room in those channels for the metal to flow through, and because after they're done, I want to hammer them and give them back some of the strength in the glitter that a piece of rolled metal can have when it's hammered. I love hammering, but it has, silver when you heat it is called annealed. It makes it very soft, just like lead. And then the sterling silver alloys, they're 925 parts silver, 75 parts usually copper, but when I'm working with it, there's a little germanium in there that doesn't allow it to tarnish and also allows you to do that kiln hardening so that you can have a very light piece even in the wire, and you can step on it, and it doesn't weigh a ton, because that is a consideration. But anyway, with the cast pieces, I like to do them so that I can hammer them back out, so they are still light. Anyway, gold is fun to carve, but it means keeping track. I usually put a tray to catch the gold. Everything I do, I was thinking of this, actually Dave mentioned it when I cut some of these out. There's no waste. In silver, this gets melted down and becomes the next snowflake. With the leaves, there's a lot. These over the years I've gotten really quick at cutting these out with a little tiny saw blade. I've done it here for a lot of, I won't even try to get it out of there. But I think most people would stamp them out. They would use, there's lots of different laser cutters and everything else, but I enjoy the process. And sometimes you see something and you want to just, that's pretty. It's something different, and that when some person that owns that piece of jewelry later, and that's their precious thing, they have something unique. And whether by design or accident, I think it's, you know, that to me is a really good point in doing what you can by hand. And I do use drills and polishing wheels. If something is a tool that I can use to get the results I want, I will. I will never be able to control a computer and do things like, you know, printing, that kind of thing. It's not in my brain. It is in my kids' brains, and more power to them. But anyway, to move into the future, I think if you have ideas, I want to work more with the sheet metal. I want to play more. I want to do these icicles finally, because those really were part of my set of work that I brought in when I journeyed in. And so many times people have come up to me and said, how about those prototypes? And so I think at this point, it's time for those prototypes. So again, I'm going to be moving backwards into the future. And we'll see.
That's great.
Are there any other questions?
I wanted to ask about
Yes.
the
You
skiers.
do commissions?
David, you get to be, you can translate.
She was wanted to ask, what about the skiers?
Yeah.
Anything in particular, or?
No, that you did skiers. She did skiers.
She wanted to know about the skiers. that you did.
Okay, well, it's a good thing David's here. I did some of little skiers, they're stick figures, and I remember you always loved them. I was very young, and I very much appreciated that support. Dentistry was expensive for me, and my dentist and his wife made sure I could afford it. It was wonderful. And they were skiers, and I know Ben was an ambassador,
Right.
helped other people, and we're all part of this social mix. And Dave and I would ski a whole lot more, but mostly I would spend my time in my shop before we were married, and we're now talking, oh boy, 35, 40 years. So, I made little skiers, but he was better at it. And he would do the little figures.
I couldn't do anything anywhere near the level of what she was doing, but I could do stick figures.
But those little skiers, I love seeing them. This year, I have them, but what I want to do is I want to back them with a black diamond. It will make them wearable. It will make them not catch in your hair, and it goes along with the idea of the expert skier. So I'm trying to work that design out. There's got to be something in a diamond shape for me this year that is, who knows why. You never know why these things, come out in your dreams until you do it. But yes, we love doing those skiers, and it was something that Dave and I could work on together.
She had to do the soldering though. 'Cause you know how easy it is to burn and melt your work in a heartbeat with a torch?
And Liza had a question too, Dave.
You're doing commissions. She does do commissions.
Commissions? Do you do commission work?
I don't right now, only because I can't get everything done, and I am finally back to doing something that I put aside. There's a whole lot more involved. I was able to get my family homestead. My poor husband is trying to make it livable. It will be a beautiful studio or not, but these are things, being able to walk in the woods again, take a little time. It was hard for me when my children grew up and left, because that was a huge focus that has now gone. They're doing fine, they don't need me. But I go back to the things that I loved, and to be able to actually go to the places where I did them. It's important to me to see the reflection of the sun on the waves, the little flickering on a pond, and go, yeah, that's what that diamond does, or why you make a certain leaf shape. It was the sun coming through that green that just really highlighted that one. And that's my inspiration, even though I am working with a mineral and trying to definitely sell my wares. But I enjoy what I do. And I'm at the point where I have to let myself do that because, well, basically I'm dealing with heart issues like we all will, and a million other things, and I've learned to not put stresses on myself. And to not put stresses on myself, and actually, if you can do art without having to worry about the money of it, which is not a big deal, I've got that one figured out, you know, but not having somebody waiting, or somebody else, and people have great ideas. I have learned so much from doing commissions. It's the challenge and the why would they want that? And you figure it out, and I wouldn't make things that I wouldn't take back and sell in my shop. That was my one rule when I was doing it. I had to be at a level in a design that I felt I did. But anyway, to be able to do that now, it is thrilling, honestly, to be able to do what I want with the work and to have the skills to do it and to have the help who helps do the dishes, you know, so that life goes on and it's not constant interruption or a 9-to-5 job. I've always been lucky that my community supported me enough that I could do what I wanted and I could get good at what I like doing. I don't know, that's what I would wish for everyone. I'm happy with it. So, thank you. And please come up and look at things close, because they are hard to see.